Michael, thanks for coming on the show. Let's kick off with your past. You were once a mafia boss. In 1986, you were actually listed as one of the top 50 most powerful and wealthy mafia bosses in the world. Mm-hmm. There's a mystique, in a way, around the mafia, a sort of glamour and grit. Are the portrayals that we see anything like living it?
Well, it depends on what you're seeing. And if you're watching a movie like Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, even Bronx Tale, pretty authentic. You know, the characters are portrayed well. And, you know, in Goodfellas, they mentioned me in Goodfellas and in Donnie Brasco. I knew all those guys, and I thought they did a great job. Now, some of the movies that you see, no, but those three, I would say, are pretty accurate.
When I watched Gomorrah, which is set in Italy, it's set in the slums of Naples, really, it's gritty and it's messy and it's brutish, and it's a kind of horrible life, actually, to watch it. It's full of pathos, actually. Mm-hmm. Was it like that quite a lot of the time, like it was a grind?
In America, there are a lot of misconceptions, you know, that people draw from the media and sometimes from, you know, from entertainment things that they watch. There is a gritty part of the life, obviously. It's very gritty, it's street. But there's also a integrity and a respect to the life. And I think we see that in some of those movies. We saw it in The Godfather, even though it was fictional. And that's what I experienced. You know, there is a high standard in that life in many ways.
There's a code of conduct.
Yeah, code of conduct. Respect is an issue. Discipline is an issue. You know, being respectful to women, believe it or not, you know, your wives, your families. It's all part of that life. And there are serious consequences if you don't pay attention.
On your website, you say of yourself that you're the only high-ranking official from a major crime family that ever walked away without protective custody alive, and you're still here, and you're very successful.
Yes.
How did you do that? Well,
understand, it's not something that I portrayed myself as, but you don't walk away from that life. I mean, you just can't. You take that oath, it's a lifetime oath. And normally when people leave the life, they join the government, enter a witness protection program, and begin cooperating. I didn't do that. I was just determined to walk away because I knew it was a bad life, and I wanted to preserve my family life.
After you left, you must have been afraid. Were you constantly looking over your shoulder thinking someone's going to take me out?
When I walk down the street here, I look over my shoulder. It's just instinct, you know, from being part of that life for so many years. I didn't live in fear, because I felt pretty sure that I can handle it. So I didn't live in fear, but I was cautious.
I wondered as well whether your father remained in the mafia. He died when we just talked about it, when he was 103. Did he offer you protection? Do you think that helped you, that your father was still active?
You know, yes and no. Listen, when I walked away from that life, the authorities, the FBI, came into prison. I was in prison at the time, and they said, there's a contract on your life and your father has gone along with it. That's what they told me. You know, I don't think they understood that I knew the life that well, and I understood that my father couldn't speak up for me at that point because he didn't know what I was going to do. If he did go along with it, it was only to protect himself, because when you bring somebody into that life and that person becomes an informant or cooperator, you could be in trouble yourself for introducing him into the life.
How did you feel when you found out that your father had gone along with the contract on your life? You're a father yourself.
I understood what he was doing. Now, I want to make it clear, I mean, I don't think my father would ever put a bullet in my head. I don't believe that. He did what he had to do just to preserve himself at that point, but did it hurt a little bit? Yeah, I have to admit it did. But I understood what he was doing, and I love my dad. I mean, there was nothing that he was going to do to interfere in the love that I had for him and the love he had for me. I understood that. But, you know, the street life is different, and you have to be careful there, because, you know, one wrong move could be very serious.
So in some ways, the mafia family becomes more important than your nuclear family, your real family?
Not for me. But remember this.
But for your dad?
Yes. When you take that oath, you're told straight out, if your mother is dying and sick and you're at her bedside and we call you to service, you leave your mother, you come and serve us. From now on, we're number one in your life before anything and everything. So you have that drilled into your head. It's number one. My dad, unfortunately, lived by that oath to great suffering of his family. I mean, understand, I had a sister that died at the age of 27, OD'd on drugs. My brother, a drug addict all his life, became an informant and testified against my dad in a case. My younger brother, my baby brother.
What happened to him?
He put my father back in jail. My brother is now on the street. He was in witness protection for many years. And I wasn't willing to do that to my family.
Michael, can you a made man, a made member, you were inducted in 1975,
yes.
so
Yes.
48 years ago it would be, 47 years ago. Can you just explain to the viewers what is that? What was that night like? What happens?
They cut your finger right here, some blood drops on the floor. I cupped my hands. They took a picture of a saint, Catholic altar card, put it on my hands, lit it aflame. Didn't hurt, it burned quickly. It was merely symbolic. And he said, tonight, Michael Franzese, you are born again into a new life, into Cosa Nostra. Violate what you know about this life, betray your brothers, and you will die, and burn in hell like the saint is burning in your hands. Do you accept? Yes, I do. That's the oath.
Well, let's get on to London, here in Tottenham. You came here to talk about the tour, but also you know in London that there's a huge problem with knife crime in places like Tottenham, lots of boroughs across the capital. There's an initiative here, gloves up, knives down. Would that have persuaded you years ago in Brooklyn, do you think?
Yes. These kids on the street, I spent a lot of time in prison with kids coming into the system, 21, 22 years old, horrible backgrounds, you know, get involved in gangs, drugs, the whole bit. And I used to minister and counsel to them at that time. Before I was a Christian, I was still a street guy at that point. I said, what are you doing with your life? You know, I tell them, you know, you keep hanging out in these environments, get used to this because this is going to be your home. You're going to be here for the rest of your life. And you're going to drive your family crazy if you got one. So, but yes, you need these organizations because look, you can't just tell a kid, walk away from that life and send them back to the neighborhood. It's dangerous.
What occurs to me when you talk about your previous life is that the Mafia is like an alternative society. It has a family, it has social bonds, intergenerational respect, it has a structure, it has a code of conduct. It's motivated by a clear goal, which is success and protection of members. When I think about organised crime gangs in London, they might be less structured, but they also, for the kids that get involved in them, they're a family. It provides them with structure. Do you see parallels between the two lives?
No, they don't have real structure and discipline. They're not really organized. They're a bunch of street thugs trying to steal to earn a living, and that's what they teach. It's different. The gang life is different than Mafia Cosa Nostra. We were organized crime. We had our crime directed in a certain direction. We weren't going robbing people's houses and you know, knifing people in the street and stuff like that. We didn't do that. My targets, federal government, big banks, insurance company. They got enough money. I figured, hey, if we take a few bucks there, they'll survive. We're not robbing people in the street. It's a whole different thing. That's not family.
And Michael, we've talked a bit about knife crime and inner city crime. And you do go and talk to kids in schools, but you're also here because you've got a tour where you're going to talk about your life.
Yes. July 2nd at the Grosvenor Hotel, we kick off the tour right here in London, where we should kick it off. And we're going to 25 cities throughout the United Kingdom. And it's going to be fantastic. I'm very excited about it. They're going to hear about the mob life. It's part of life. I know what people want to hear. I've been telling stories, but I feel I can say things here in the United Kingdom that I've never said before. And I want to give people a real insight into that life. You got to understand something. I was around John Gotti, Fat Tony Salerno, The Chin, Joe Colombo. These were all my fellow associates. My dad, Sonny Franzese, oldest living mob guy in the world. So I have a lot to talk about, a lot to tell. I want to give people real insight into that life, and they're going to hear it all around the UK. And it's going to be a fun deal.
Okay, Michael Franzese, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.